Yes, how are we all? I hope all is well. My name is Sachin, and this is the Total Cricket Podcast, episode 22. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the third and final test between Sri Lanka and India, so let's get started. India won the game by an innings and 171 runs, an absolute thrashing. Once again, an innings defeat for Sri Lanka, and India win the series 3-0 in a whitewash. I'll begin with the team news. India, they made one change with Kuldeep Yadav coming in for the suspended Ravindra Jadeja. Nothing surprising about that. Sri Lanka, they made three changes. Lakshan Sandakan, Lairu Kumara, and Vishwa Fernando came in. Nuwan Pradeep and Rangana Herath missed out due to injury. And surprisingly, Dhananjaya De Silva was also dropped. I think the writing was on the wall for Dhananjaya after he was demoted in the batting order below Dilruwan Pereira in the second innings of the SSC test, and he has fallen prey to Sri Lanka's chop and change selection policy. What's going to happen to Dhananjaya De Silva now? Is he just going to fall into the abyss? Are we ever going to see him fulfill his potential? I'm not sure. Now on to the recap. India, they won the toss yet again, and of course they elected to bat first, and they got 487 in their first and only innings of the game. A very strong total indeed, and really was driven by a astonishing 188 run opening stand between Shikhar Dhawan and KL Rahul that really knocked the stuffing out of Sri Lanka. And Shikhar Dhawan getting his second century of the tour. KL Rahul, he got a 50 yet again, his seventh consecutive test match 50. Really incredible consistency from KL. And then Sri Lanka did come back into the game after that, and India were 329 for 6 at stumps on day one. But Hardik Pandya took any chance Sri Lanka had of coming back in a way with a breathtaking 108 of 96 deliveries, his first professional 100. Incredible from Hardik, and he did get able support from Kuldeep Yadav particularly, but also Mohammad Shami and Umesh Yadav to prolong Sri Lanka's suffering. The bowling for Sri Lanka, Vishwa Fernando, he got 2 wickets. Lairu Kumara, Dilruwan Pereira, they went wicketless. Malinda Pushpakumara, he got 3 for, and Lakshan Sandakan coming back into the team got his maiden 5-wicket haul in Test cricket, so congratulations to him. Sri Lanka in reply yet again feeble. They were bowled out for 135 in their first innings, only lasting 37.4 overs. The top score was Dinesh Chandimal with 48, and then apart from him, there was no resistance. Absolutely none whatsoever. It was Kuldeep Yadav, the main destroyer. He got 4 for. Ravi Ashwin and Mohammad Shami, they got 2 wickets apiece. Hardik Pandya got 1, and of course, there was the run out of Kusal Mendis. And Sri Lanka were asked to follow on after conceding a deficit of 352, and they were unable to make India bat again. Bowled out for 181, not much better than the first innings. There was a little bit of fight from Dinesh Chandimal, Angelo Matthews, and Dick Vella. They all got starts, but really it was just prolonging the inevitable. India trouncing Sri Lanka well inside 3 days. An absolutely emphatic victory. In the second innings, Ravi Ashwin picked up 4. Mohammad Shami, he got 3. Umesh Yadav got 2. And Kuldeep Yadav got the other wicket. And that was it for the series. A demolition job by India yet again. And let's get into the breakdown now. And I will start with Sri Lanka. And before I get into the individual players, Sri Lanka are playing a vastly superior team in this series. And if you're going to even compete with India, you need a lot of luck. And Sri Lanka have not had that luck. They've lost all 3 tosses. They've lost 3 players to injury. And they've had a couple of very unusual dismissals as well. So really, Sri Lanka haven't had the rub of the green, and as such, this series has not been competitive. But that does not excuse Sri Lanka's performance in this series, no doubt. We'll begin with the batting. there was very little resistance offered by the batsmen. It was really feeble. They lacked discipline on a whole, and they didn't really learn from the previous games. That's, I think, the most worrying thing, that batsmen were making the same mistakes. That is certainly never a good sign. Now, I'll start with Dimuth Karunaratne. I think he was a little bit unlucky in this game. He got a brute of a delivery from Mohammad Shami in the first innings, and then again in the second innings from Ravi Ashwin, although he didn't move his feet and he poked at the ball a bit. I think he could have played that one better. But certainly, on the whole, despite the two failures in this game, he was Sri Lanka's best batsman, their top scorer in the series, and certainly he has revived his Test career in this series. I think he was the one out of all the Sri Lankan batsmen that actually had some discipline to his batting and the willingness to apply himself in bat long periods to put in the hard yards you need to against high quality bowling. So I certainly think Dimuth Karunaratne comes out of this series with a lot of credit. He was also good in the field, and he bowled okay, to be fair to him. He bowled some little seam up balls that did nip around a bit. So I think he's had a good series. Certainly, though, the thing for him now is to build on this. And in the next tour, which is against Pakistan, he goes on and he doesn't just revert to how he was before this series. He needs to kick on now. He's played 42 tests to become a consistent test opener. Now onto Upul Taranga. Upul Taranga is not a test batsman. He also failed twice in this test. He didn't even score 100 runs in the whole series, averaged below 15. And I've said this before, he's played 23 tests against teams not named Bangladesh or Zimbabwe, and he averages 24 in those games with no hundreds. That is not good enough. That shows that he is not up to the required standard. And forget the statistics, just have a simple eye test. His technique is clearly deficient. We saw in the first innings yet again, in and around that off stump, Taranga is very loose. And then in the second innings, playing with that 45-degree angled bat and chopping the ball back onto his stumps. Upul Taranga is a very talented stroke maker. We know this, but he doesn't have the quality technically to withstand high quality bowling as a test opener. He's very loose outside off stump, leaves a big gap between bat and pad. So really, he's a liability both on the inside edge and the outside edge, which is not a good recipe. And really, I think Taranga's poor form in the test arena is going to have a knock-on effect to Sri Lanka's limited overs teams. Taranga is the limited overs captain, and you saw after his dismissal in the second innings, he was dismissed twice on the same day. He looked like he was sick of life. He looked like a defeated man after that dismissal in the second innings. And if he's very low on confidence as the captain, what is that going to do to the rest of the team? It's not a good recipe for success, I feel. So definitely Upul Taranga, for Sri Lanka's own good, needs to be taken out of the test team, and they need to try someone else. Kusal Mendis, he's still not a refined test player. He is the most talented batsman Sri Lanka have produced since Kumar Sangakkara, right? And he came out almost 20 years ago. But the problem is he hasn't played a lot of first-class cricket before, let alone just senior cricket against men. And so his game is not refined. And the thing I worry about is in his surrounding environment, given, I think, the poor quality of coaching, the omni-shambles of the board, the losing team, the instability in the captaincy. Really, is this the optimal environment for him to flourish, for any player to flourish? Absolutely not. So I wonder whether he's going to be able to improve to become a consistent batsman, because we've seen him play some breathtaking innings, but he averages 35 at the end of the day. He needs to be more consistent. There are clear technical deficiencies in his game, and in this game, we saw them again. We've seen in the past, obviously, he gets squared up very easily, does nick off quite a lot, and The other thing is he gets LBW quite a lot, playing across the line and just missing the ball, missing a straight ball. He needs to try and play that ball more straighter, I feel, rather than through mid wicket, almost square leg. I think that's a better percentage shot. We all know Mendes is so talented. He's an audacious stroke maker, but I worry if he's ever going to reach his full potential in this Sri Lankan team. Dinesh Chandimal, he actually was the best Sri Lankan batsman in this game. I thought he applied himself out of all the batsmen and he showed good stroke play as well, a reasonably solid defence. He was a little bit lucky with a couple of LBW calls, but he did an okay job. The problem is he got out in the same way, really just looking to work the ball off his pads and getting caught at either leg slip or at short leg. So that's not a great sign. It's a bit of a soft dismissal getting caught like that. But certainly for Chandimal, obviously the problems for him are more macro. He's a good batsman, but he's not scoring runs at the moment. And obviously he's the captain, and this is a losing team. Now, being the captain in a losing team, and when you yourself are not performing with the bat, that is always going to create problems. And for Chandimal, he is under immense pressure. And I'm wondering, where does this end? If he continues to struggle with the bat, do they just sack him as the captain, drop him? Then who do you go to? Where are the alternatives as captain? Sri Lanka have dug a really deep hole for themselves, I feel. And Chandimal really is right in the middle of that. I'll talk about his captaincy a little bit later in the podcast, but certainly this is really a ticking time bomb, I feel, for Sri Lanka. Angelo Matthews, once again, a couple of, well, actually, no, only one start. He got a duck in the first innings, and really familiar failings for Angelo Matthews, caught on the crease against a fast bowler trapped in front. We know Matthews isn't particularly great against fast bowling. And then in the second innings, it was probably the ball was too full to sweep from Ashwin, and he was trapped plumb in front. Angelo Matthews, he averaged 30 in this series, didn't score 100, which is in line with his recent form. I've said it for a while. In his last 17 tests, that is, since the last time India toured Sri Lanka, he averages 29 and hasn't scored 100 in Test cricket. That is not good enough to really keep a place, to justify your place in the team, let alone when you were the captain for the vast majority of those games. So we see this pattern over the last couple of years. The Sri Lankan captain has not been performing, which just puts pressure on everyone. And for Matthews, I don't care what you say about whether he should be captain or not. He wasn't performing in the last 2 years as captain, and that has continued now that he has given up the captaincy. So, captain or no captain, he hasn't performed in the last 2 years. As Sri Lanka's most experienced batsman, this is the last thing Sri Lanka needed. He is not delivering in an already underperforming team. And to me, Matthews, as a test batsman, he has technical deficiencies. He's got a brilliant eye, fantastic hand-eye coordination, but over the 7 years he's been playing test cricket, he's had the same issues, particularly playing fast bowling, and he hasn't improved at that. So once again, you see Sri Lankan players not improving, almost regressing, if anything, which is a real trend throughout the team. And certainly Angelo Matthews' continued lack of form is a huge worry for Sri Lanka. Now, Niroshan Dikvella, again, he got a couple of starts in this game. We know Dikvella is a fantastic stroke maker, particularly has a great sweep. But the thing about Dikvella is now we're seeing a pattern in his innings. He's a fearless stroke maker. I love the fact that he takes the game to the opposition. It's a good trait. But there is no restraint about it. There's no patience. The thing about Dikvella is he's not building an innings, really. And that's something he needs to work on. As a number 6 batsman, you need to be scoring bigger runs. You're not an 8 or a 9 and just there to chip in with starts. You're there to make more sizable contributions. And at the end of the day, he's had a lot of starts in this series and he's played well, but his dismissals are quite baffling. We've seen now twice where he's just glided the ball to the gully in the first innings. He came down the track, beaten by Kuldeep Yadav googly. Really, there is no sense of pacing to his innings. It's all very one-track mind, very tunnel vision from Dick Vella. And if he's to become a good test batsman, he needs to show a little bit more patience. Yes, be proactive, be aggressive, play your shots, no doubt. But he needs to have a sense of timing to his innings. Otherwise, he's just going to keep getting these starts. He plays such a high risk game. I think he needs to learn to play the percentages a bit more. But certainly, he's an extremely talented player. And yet again, is he going to go to the next level in this current Sri Lankan environment? That's been the theme for me of this team. There's talent in the batting, but who's actually improving, really? And that is the biggest issue. Now, I have to. No, actually, no. I'm going to finish the batting there. And now I'm going to start with the bowling for Sri Lanka. Now, the bowling was completely toothless for Sri Lanka. Yet again, I thought that the way they fought back on the first day after that huge opening stand was admirable. But then to give it away like they did on that first morning to Hardik Pandya, a guy who hasn't got a professional 100 before, was very disappointing. And when I look at the Sri Lankan bowling, on the whole, there's very little penetration, there's very little control, and there's a lot of absolute rubbish. To me, when you're a team that doesn't have great ability, the bowling is not super talented, at the very least, you can be disciplined in the way you bowl and at least make it hard for the batsmen. But throughout this series, they have given countless freebies to the Indian batsmen, and that is certainly the most disappointing part about that. This bowling attack doesn't look like it can take 20 wickets at home. If you can't do that, you're going to struggle to be competitive. And so, to me, this really shows that Sri Lanka's losing form shows no sign of really slowing down anytime soon. Now, going into the individual bowlers, Vishwa Fernando playing his second game, really his first proper game. He only bowled 2 overs in his first match. I thought he bowled okay. It was not bad. To be fair to him, I thought he had much more control than Lairu Kumara as a left armer. Unfortunately, he didn't swing the ball back, really. He got some shape with the new ball, but he wasn't really able to get it to tail back in to the Indian right-handers. But he did show some control with his line and length, and I was impressed with his endurance. He bowled 26 overs and was able to keep going throughout, and he didn't fade away. He got 2 wickets, which I thought was deserved, and he bowled reasonably economically, going for just 3.34 an over. To me, Vishwa is someone that should be kept around the squad. I think he's a reasonable guy to pick. I think certainly he's someone who Sri Lanka can look to offer something different, a little bit of balance as a left armer. I think certainly he has a future. Obviously, I don't see him as someone who's going to start winning matches for Sri Lanka. He's not going to take bagfuls of wickets, but certainly he's someone who is worth persisting with, at least in the near future. Given all the injury worries as well, he will get more chances. So let's see if he can build on this in the future. Now, Lairu Kumara, this was a very disappointing performance. He went wicketless, went for 4.5 runs and over. The same issues that we've seen for Kumara surfaced again. His lack of control is astounding to me, how poor it is. It amazes me that an international bowler, a test bowler, cannot put the ball on the spot. He is so unbelievably wayward. It is incredible to me how wayward he is. And what I wonder is, what is he working on in training? The fact that this is such a remedial, a basic of bowling to have control, what is he working on? That's what I want to know. Yet again, these players are not improving. Kumara, yes, he bowls fast. Yes, he can bowl a wicket-taking ball, but he's a liability, and he can't be trusted with the new ball because the opposition is very likely to get off to a flyer with Kumara bowling. This pitch, it had some grass on it, But to be fair, it didn't really offer a lot for the bowlers. But at the very least, have some control. And Kumara did not have that. And to me, I just think if he cannot bowl with control, Sri Lanka can't pick him at the moment. But we've talked about before, the issue is it's a catch-22. Going to first class cricket, the standard is so poor that your weaknesses are not exposed. You can't improve at that level. So he has to play test cricket to improve, but he's a liability. So it's a real issue for Sri Lanka, and Kumara just needs to focus on his control. Forget about bowling 145, even slow it down 5 kilometers. If you can control the ball, that's a lot better because bowling fast and wild is very easy for test batsmen to hit to all parts of the ground. Now, Dilruwan Pereira, I think the person that I wanted to talk about the most. Dilruwan Pereira, he bowled just the 8 overs in this game, went wicketless. I appreciate that India is stacked full of right-handers, so obviously it's not the ideal scenario for the off-spinner to bowl in. I don't think he was injured. There was no word of him being injured. So let me get this straight. Dilruwan Pereira, he batted at 7 in this game. Dhananjaya de Silva was batting at 7 in the last game, right? Think about this. Dhananjaya de Silva bowled more overs in the second test than Dilruwan Pereira did in this test. That is quite incredible. So they've gone through a pretty similar bowling workload, and now you pick Dilruwan Pereira ahead of Dhananjaya as a batsman, basically, because Dilruwan only bowled 8 overs. So you've basically picked Dilruwan as a batsman ahead of Dhananjaya de Silva, a guy who has test hundreds, and you put a man who has a test average of 22 at number 7. How on earth is a guy that averages 22 in test cricket worthy of holding the number 7 spot in the batting lineup? This has to be one of the worst selections that Sri Lanka have ever made, and that is saying something. Dilruwan Pereira has averaged 60 with the ball in the 6 tests that he has played this year. That is not good enough to justify a spot, and he's only kept his spot part due to injury, but also because of a purple patch in his batting. He's averaged 42 with the bat this year. Actually, no, that's just this little home summer. He's actually averaged 38 with the bat this year in all those 6 games he's played, which is good, but it's a purple patch. When you take his whole career, he averages below 22 with the bat. So he's not justifying his place in the team. Far from it. He's 34 years old, and India, when you look at their team, they are stacked full of right-handers. Of the 8 batsmen in India's team, just Shikhar Dhawan is a left-hander. So is it really worthwhile playing an off-spinner in the first place against India? Dilruwan should not be playing test cricket for Sri Lanka. They are wasting time in a rebuilding team with a guy who is not performing, who is well onto the wrong side of 30, and there's guys waiting in the wings who are clearly more talented. When you've got already 2 spinners, they can get through a good workload. There's no need to play a 5th bowler, particularly if there's no quality there. I understand that Sri Lanka need to take 20 wickets to win games, but there's no point in playing 5 bowlers if the quality is not there. Doing it for the sake of it, all you're doing is weakening the batting, and that is exactly what Sri Lanka did in this game. And this is why I feel they need to move on from Dilruwan Pereira. Dhananjaya de Silva, I worry about his future. Is he going to come back into the team now? Asela Gunaratne is due to be back for the Pakistan series. When is the next time we will see Dhananjaya de Silva in the Sri Lankan test team? I really don't know. After the amazing start he had to his career, the way the selectors have showed basically no patience with him really is very disappointing when they've given a guy like Dilruwan countless opportunities. It really, really, really bugs me that. But I move on to the next player, Malinda Pushpakumara. He got 3 wickets in this game. Again, he has a good defense with the bat. He doesn't seem to be able to score, but at least he can defend, which is saying something. It's good in the context of a Sri Lankan tail ender, but certainly he's no number 8. But with the ball, Pushpakumara, I thought was underwhelming. Yes, he got 3 wickets, and those were all on the first day. But if you have a look at those wickets, the batsmen were really just going after him. KL Rahul and Shikhar Dhawan played poor strokes, trying to go over the top, and they miscued. And they were great catches, by the way, by Dimuth Karunaratne and Dinesh Chandimal. And then the 3rd wicket I felt was really Lakshan Sandakan had been working over Ajinkya Rahane, and then Rahane had a bit of a brain fade, and he was bowled coming down the pitch to Pushpakumara. But really, Pushpakumara got absolutely dealt with by Hardik Pandya. 1 over went for 26. That is diabolical, and that over exposed the flaws in his bowling. His average speed is about 74, 75 kilometers an hour. That is too slow at the test level. And I talked about it with Kumara. You can get away with it at the Sri Lankan first class level on ridiculously spin friendly conditions against fairly average batsmen. You can get away with it. But against test batsmen on a reasonably unhelpful pitch, you can't. And the thing is, when you bowl that slowly, batsmen are just going to line you up because they have so much time to set themselves. If the ball bites, they have extra time to adjust. And they have a lot of time if they want to come down the pitch and hit you over the top of your head. And that is what Hardik did. Also, Pushpakumara, technically, he falls away when he comes to the bowling crease. He's 30 years old and he does something like that. Clearly a technical issue in his bowling that he doesn't seem to get really over the top of the ball, get a lot of overspin on it, really generate bounce. He doesn't generate any bounce at all. And the thing about it is he also doesn't really get the ball over the batsman's eye. It's fairly flat and really very predictable, his bowling. Yes, he has reasonable control, but in terms of the actual skill, he doesn't particularly drift the ball. As I said, he doesn't really get a nice loop on it. And really, I can't see him being an elite test bowler. He is no Rangana Herat, put it that way. He's no Rangana Herat. Obviously, a lot of people have touted him as the heir to Rangana Herat's throne. But I think Sri Lanka may have to look elsewhere for that. Because again, he's 30 years old. Is he really going to improve? I just can't see him being particularly successful at this level with that sort of action and that speed that he bowls with. Now, on to the a little bit of a positive for Sri Lanka from this game. Lakshan Sandakan, he came back in the team and he got his maiden fifer in Test cricket. And Sandakan's success in this game, more than anything in recent past, highlighted the selection failings of Sri Lanka. Look at Sandakan. This is a guy who did not play a game at the Champions Trophy. When it was clear Sri Lanka were lacking wicket takers, we all know how leg spinners, wrist spinners in ODI cricket are really becoming the trump card. And not to mention Sandakan, the Chinaman, it's an unknown quantity to a lot of teams. Yet he wasn't picked. In fact, in the last 2 games, Sri Lanka's spinner was Asela Gunaratne, if you can call him a spinner. So that was really made absolutely no sense. And then after that, he was recalled to the ODI team against Zimbabwe, and in his first game back, he got a forfeit. Then in the next 2 games, he didn't play well, albeit in one of them, he had to bowl at the depth. When does a spinner bowl at the depth? Very rarely, especially a Chinaman bowler, when you know control is not necessarily going to be their biggest attribute. And then in the next game, he was bowling mostly with a wet ball. So it was very difficult conditions for him. But nonetheless, he didn't bowl well. 2 bad games and he's dropped. Now, what message does that send to a player that you're almost playing for your spot in every game? How would that make you feel if every time you went out to play, you felt that you were playing for your spot? That's going to inhibit you. You're going to be nervous. You're not going to play with the freedom, with the confidence that you might otherwise. And I don't think it's a good place to put these players in. You need to give them confidence to express themselves. And you see with Sandakan, we know that his control can be very wayward at times, but when he gets it right, this is the result. A real threat. And he was by far the biggest threat to the Indian batsmen. I thought he got Kohli, that was brilliant. The way he bowled to Rahane as well, really bamboozling him. That was really good to see. He got the ball to turn a lot, particularly his googly, on a pitch that didn't offer a great deal of spin. That's the beauty of the wrist spinner. And obviously, I think it's clear now he's Sri Lanka's biggest threat in terms of spinners. Obviously, there's Ranganahera, but he's not going to play much longer. Sandakan has to play every test match from now. It's as simple as that. I don't care if he has a bad game. You have to let him bed into the team and build up some confidence, build up some experience, because otherwise he's not going to improve elsewhere in Sri Lanka cricket. We all know that. So, really, for Sandakan, that's all he needs. He needs to be given a good run in the team because he is potentially a match-winning bowler for Sri Lanka. Now, for Sri Lanka, the last little bit is some other stuff like the fielding, the captaincy. I'm going to talk about the fielding again. Left a lot to be desired. On the first day, they dropped 3 catches early. They were all during that huge opening stand. Angelo Matthews, Lairu Kumara, Kusal Mendis. It's a problem that is ongoing for Sri Lanka. It's not going to really be remedied overnight. It's going to take a while. And also, when you're in a team that's losing, low on confidence, that makes it that much harder, to be quite honest with you. So that's obviously an ongoing issue. Then I thought running between the wickets, Kusal Mendis was not good running between the wickets, and that resulted in his run out. Running between the wickets is also an ongoing problem for Sri Lanka. They don't push hard. You don't see them get those 2s, those 3s. The running is obviously a little bit lazy at times. Definitely the fitness issues come into that, and it costs them a lot as well. But I think the thing also that I want to talk about is the captaincy on that second morning from Chandimal was very disappointing. I thought the way you're just giving Hardik Pandya the freedom of the whole field, telling him basically, have all the fun you want, score all the runs you want by spreading the field like that, really is very disappointing to see. Hardik is not Virat Kohli or Cheteshwar Pujara. He's a number 8. He's a guy who has never scored a first-class 100. Why are you just allowing him to score all the runs he wants? That to me was completely baffling, and it continues the negative mindset that a lot of Sri Lankan captains have. There is this culture of negativity, of defensive fields, of we're going to try to restrict you, we're not going to try and take wickets, and that is never going to be successful. And it certainly does not help Sri Lanka. But that is it for Sri Lanka in this game. And now on to India. And India, really, these games are really like practice matches for India. It's ridiculous how easy it is for them. But just looking at their team, the batting was ruthless, starting from the top. Yes, the middle order didn't perform, but they didn't need to. And these are all players that have performed very well. It's not like they're struggling players. So really, there's nothing bad to say about India. Looking at Shikhar Dhawan, another century. Shikhar Dhawan against very weak bowling on a flat pitch is absolutely devastating. Now, he's done exceptionally well in this tour. He was India's leading run scorer. But do I see him taking the place of Murali Vijay when he returns? No, I don't. Murali Vijay is a better opener, a better test opener. He has 700s combined against Australia and England. That is a very good record. Shikhar Dhawan just having his way with Sri Lanka, I don't think that carries the same weight. We've seen Shikhar Dhawan struggle in England, in South Africa, in Australia. We've seen Murali Vijay score test centuries in Australia and England. I think Vijay comes back in. Shikhar Dhawan still, to me, technically is not at the required level against high-quality bowling on challenging pitches. When you look at Murali Vijay, He's very technically sound, and I think India also, I think, feel this way. But obviously, having a guy like Shikhar Dhawan as your third choice opener just shows the wealth of riches that India have. KL Rahul, again, Mr. Consistent, his seventh consecutive Test 50, but no hundreds. It's been a bizarre start to his career for KL. He started with he either failed or he got 100. Now he's gone into the middle and he's getting a 50 every innings, but he's not converting them. And that is obviously the next step for him. He's got to convert them. This was a poor shot to get out. He didn't need to do it. He completely mistimed that one off Pushpa Kumara. That was definitely a case of him getting himself out. He's a real class batsman. He combines the grit, the technical quality that an opening batsman should have, with just some beautifully stylish stroke play that you expect of a number 3, number 4. And he's a high quality batsman, but really it's just a case of him being ruthless. In the last game, he got run out. It's just a case of him focusing extra hard, not having that lapse in concentration. If he can do that, he's going to be an elite player, if he already isn't. Cheteshwar Pujara, he failed in this game, but what can you say? Obviously, I think he missed one that just slid on from Sandakan. You could argue maybe a little bit too close to cut, playing with a little bit of a 45-degree angle, but Pujara has been excellent recently. As a batsman, you're not going to score in every innings. He had a lapse in concentration in this game. You really can't read much into it, I don't think, for Cheteshwar Pujara. Still a fantastic series for him with a couple of centuries and no doubt one of the best batsmen in Test cricket. Now, Virat Kohli, yet again, he failed to score a 50 in the first innings. He hasn't got a 50 in any of his first innings in this series. And I think we are seeing a bit of a pattern with Kohli. It's flashing outside off stump. In this one, he was driving out courted slip off Sandakan. Now, with Kohli, a lot of people sort of feel that that 5th, 6th stump line outside off stump is his weakness. He does tend to poke, to flash outside there. And he does. He does get out there a fair bit. And if he's to become the best Test batsman in the world, he has to remedy that. And I have no doubt he will, given how driven Virat Kohli is. I don't see him going into some more prolonged slump. He will get out of this and he will improve. But certainly he does have to improve that, because that is an issue in his game. If you look at the last 10 Test innings he's played, he only has one score above 50, and that was his 100 in the second innings at Galle, which was probably the least pressure he'll ever have to bat under. 309 run first innings lead, declaration bowling, very weak attack, flat pitch. But apart from that, he has been in a bit of a slump in Test cricket, and he needs to move out of that. And certainly India will hope that he can. As the captain, always a good thing if your captain is performing. But luckily India have had such an easy time of it that really it hasn't mattered in this series. Ajinkya Rahane, he didn't bat well in this innings, I must say. He was not picking Sandakan's googly, and then he played a very poor stroke to get out bowled to Pushpa Kumara, coming down the pitch and missing a straight one. This was not a good innings from Ajinkya Rahane, but obviously he did get 100 in the last innings, and we know what a class player he is. But it's important for him to learn from this innings. And the way India are, they're very clear in the way they do things. Their processes are very precise, and I have no doubt that Rahane looked at that innings with the coaching staff and saw where he can improve, where he can do better. Now on to Ravichandran Ashwin again. He chipped in with the bat with a nice 31. He's been very decent with the bat in this series. He's averaged 44. When you have a world-class bowler who can also bat, then you're very lucky. Ravichandran Ashwin is a good all-round cricketer. I'll get into his bowling a little bit later. Wriddhiman Saha, he didn't get runs in this game. He didn't get too many runs in this series, just the 150, although he only batted 3 times. He's been good though. In the home summer, he really came of age, I felt, with the bat. He's obviously not the most talented batsman, but he has a lot of grit to him. And he was out here flashing, but if he can obviously just curb that a little bit and play within himself, then he'll be good. But I understand that given the situation of the match, it must be difficult to really have that discipline when you're so far ahead of the game. So the Wriddhiman Saha, really, It's just about learning from that. I thought he was absolutely fantastic behind the stumps in this series. His footwork, his glove work was flawless, and to me, he looks like the best wicket keeper in world cricket. There aren't a lot of good wicket keepers. A lot of them are batsmen who are playing as wicket keepers. To me, Riddhiman Saha is an old school wicket keeper who's made the most out of limited batting ability. I like that. I really like that. And he's definitely an unsung hero for India. Now, Hardik Pandya, wow, he announced himself to the Test world with this innings, his first professional 100. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Unbelievable from Hardik. The onslaught that he had on that morning session on day two. Wow. His stroke play was breathtaking. This is what Hardik Pandya brings. A counter-attacking, fearless approach that definitely adds an extra element to the Indian middle order. Now for Hardik, obviously he isn't going to get it much easier than he did in this series, and we're still yet to see how he's going to do against better opposition, but certainly his talent is clear. It's just about when he does struggle a little bit, when he does get some low scores, can he evolve? Can he become a guy who can also weather a storm and be good in defense as well as explosive in attack? That's going to be interesting, the progression of Hardik Pandya, but no doubt tougher tests lie ahead for him. But I think India have really been proven correct in their Hardik Pandya project, if you like, in this series. I think he's been really good. I think he's been really good, and he's done what he's had to do. Obviously, not the most trying circumstances, but you can only do what you can. You can't control external circumstances. So fair play to Hardik. Definitely one that India are going to be playing now across formats. He's a real one for the future. Definitely Hardik Pandya. Not to mention his bowling. He bowls quick, seam up. He can move the ball. He can bowl cutters, reverse swing. He's a skillful bowler, bounces. He's definitely got something as a bowler as well, the potential to be a good all-round cricketer. So hopefully against tougher opposition, he can replicate this. So that's it for the Indian batting. Onto the bowling, and it was pretty clinical. Mohammad Shami was fantastic in this game. Picked up 5 wickets, and in series he got 10 wickets at 17. So he was really good in this series, Mohammad Shami, particularly in this game. Decent in the first 2, but really came into his own in this game, particularly to the left-hander around the wicket. I thought he was excellent, making the ball talk, challenging both edges. He's the whole package as a bowler. He's quick, he has control, he swings the ball, reverse swing, has a great bouncer, great yorker, and really, he is definitely, I feel, India's #1 fast bowler in Test cricket, and I see no reason why he can't go outside Asia and get a lot of wickets. Umesh Yadav, he only got 6 wickets in this series at 35, but I thought he bowled a lot better than that. To me, Umesh Yadav, again, similar skill set to Shami, but he's more of a tearaway. He can go for a few runs at times, but his control has improved greatly over the years. He's still done such great work over the Indian summer, and again, definitely India's first choice pace attack, a class option, and that's really it to say. India's fast bowling stocks look good when you've got a guy like Bhuvaneshwar Kumar who can't even get a game. I talked about Hardik Pandya. Kuldeep Yadav, great to see him play in this game. He picked up 4 in the first innings and got 1 wicket as well in the second. He did bowl some loose deliveries, but that is to be expected from the Chinaman. But overall, his control was very good. And to me, someone that adds another dimension to India's team. Definitely, I feel like he should be given more opportunities. Obviously, with Jadeja and Ashwin, it's difficult. But when you've got a guy like him in reserve, you're blessed. And against perhaps weaker opposition, he can definitely be given a go, I feel. So for Kuldeep, I like his bowling. I like his googly. I think it's really good. And also, he batted quite well in this game as well. So that's also a plus point for him. But really, for Kuldeep, obviously a great time to come in and bowl against a reeling Sri Lanka team. But he proved he can do it well against better opposition in more pressure circumstances against Australia. So I like Kuldeep, and he has definitely a future. He's only 22. That's the scary thing. He's only 22, so he will have plenty of chances in the future for India. Ravi Ashwin did what he does. He got 6 wickets in the game. He's just so good. He's about to get 300 test wickets, just 8 away from that. What a bowler he is. He was fantastic in this tour as well. I believe he got 17 wickets at 26 in this series. The guy, what can I say? Unerring control, challenges both edges of the bat. That carom ball is a great variation. The drift that he gets, the loop that he gets, the bite that he gets out of the pitch, bowling at the correct speed, about 85 kilometers an hour. World-class spinner, the best spinner in world cricket for me. And that's it for India. It's been an absolute demolition job by them. And in terms of the fielding, the captaincy for India, can't really talk too much about Kohli's captaincy. It's been so easy, although I like the fact that he did enforce the follow-on in these last 2 games. It would have been farcical if they didn't, so that was good to see for the neutral watching cricket, I feel. And the fielding, there was a few lapses, but I thought the ground fielding was sensational. The close-in fielding was really good. A few lapses against the faster bowlers, I think, in the slips from India, but that's really it. They're a very good fielding team. They'll certainly look to remedy that. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to get away with dropping those chances against better teams, but I don't see it as a systemic problem. I feel like it was just almost like boredom for India dropping those catches. They were just not challenged by Sri Lanka in this series. It's very difficult, I would think, to keep up that intensity when you're not challenged by the opposition. Now, in terms of what we learned from this series for both teams, I'll start with Sri Lanka. I like to do one positive and one negative. The positive for Sri Lanka, very little in terms of the team, but I think a few individual players. Dimuth Karunaratne reviving his test career. Kusal Mendes showing the world again what a fantastic talent he is. Lakshan Sandakan coming back with a bang, showing the selectors what a mistake they have made leaving him out previously. And I would say also Niroshan Dikvella has really shown his talent, obviously needs refinement, as does Kusal Mendes, but his talent is undeniable. The negatives, I think we've known for a while Sri Lanka's batting has not really been very good for a while since the retirement of Sangakkara, Dilshan, Jayawardene, Samarawira. Their batting has struggled a lot. That's nothing new. But what is alarming is the fact that their bowling was so poor in this series. If you're unable to take 20 wickets at home, you're not a competitive test nation. And to me, this is where I see this losing form continuing for a while for Sri Lanka. If you don't have a good bowling attack, at the very least at home, then you're not going to win test matches. So I wonder when Sri Lanka's next test win is, because that is an imperative part of test cricket. We know about the batting issues, the fielding issues, the fitness issues, the running between the wickets, the board drama, the selection drama. We know that, but the bowling in this series, certainly lacking so much penetration and control, was very alarming. In terms of India, very little you can take from this series. The gulf in class was so wide. India were rarely challenged in this series, so it's difficult to take a lot out of it. But the biggest positive has to be Hardik Pandya, showing that he has immense potential to be a good test all-rounder. Yet to be really challenged, obviously, but the early signs are promising. An explosive, counter-attacking batsman and an impact bowler who can nip out crucial wickets. And also a live wire in the field. I think India really like Hardik. They like what he offers. They're very keen to give him an opportunity. I really changed my mind. I thought before, he's not really a test player. He's a bits and pieces player. But India are in such a position that they have the luxury to give him these games when, yes, he's not necessarily a refined test all-rounder, but he has the tools to be. And giving him this platform is certainly only going to help that. So good on Hardik Pandya. I think the negative, I'm really just picking something very minor, such as being India's dominance, but it would be Virat Kohli's failures in the first innings. He still averaged 53 in this series, but the fact that he wasn't able to get a 50 in any of the first innings against this Sri Lankan attack was a little bit worrying. I talked about it when I was analysing Kohli at the beginning of this podcast, that tendency to flash outside off stump. He has to rectify that, and I'm sure he will. So that's it for the series. It was probably the most one-sided series you will see this year. Really dismal display from Sri Lanka and a ruthlessly clinical performance from India. For Sri Lanka, a lot of soul searching to do. I appreciate that India are a very good team. I appreciate that there were injuries, that they didn't have any luck with the toss. But this team is not improving. That's the biggest thing for me. None of these players are improving. In fact, a lot of them are regressing. Such is the environment that surrounds them. But I'll tell you one thing that isn't an excuse, a legitimate excuse, is experience. Look at the top five. Dimuth Karuratne, 42 tests. Upul Tharanga, 31 tests. Kusal Mendis, 20 tests. Dinesh Chandimal, 39 tests. And Angelo Matthews, 69 tests. And those guys aren't inexperienced. The batting has been dismal. So you can't say inexperience. And if anything, experience is overrated. Look at the so-called experienced players and how they've performed. Chandimal and Matthews haven't performed. Tharanga hasn't performed. Dilruwan Pereira. Sri Lanka love to talk about the experience he offers, and he has been absolutely dismal. He averaged 190 with the ball. That is laughable. So, if anything, experience is overrated for Sri Lanka, and it's their younger players who are doing the performing, like Dick Vella, like Sandakan, Kusal Mendis. Really, it was Dimuth Karuratne who was the exception to that. But certainly huge problems for Sri Lanka. I feel like they're the new old Bangladesh. And what I mean by that is the pre-2015 Bangladesh. They're becoming that team. Some talented batsmen, very weak bowling. When they do get in good positions, they can't finish the game. And that's it. That's pretty much what Bangladesh were before 2015. That is where Sri Lanka are now. Bangladesh have now risen, obviously, in the world reckoning. But that is the way Sri Lanka are heading for India. Obviously, they'll have bigger tests. They've been absolutely incredible in tests over the last few years. They've won 8 consecutive test series. And their next challenge is actually a home series against Sri Lanka, which is going to be something else. That is going to be quite simply unwatchable, I feel, for the neutral. But I think definitely in the next year, they're going to England. They're going to South Africa at the end of this year. They're going to Australia next summer. There is definitely going to be big tests for them. But the squad that they have all bases covered. I see no reason why they can't succeed in those conditions. India are a fantastic team. But that is it for the series. We now move on to the ODIs, and that'll begin on Sunday at Dambulla, the first one of the 5-match series. I don't expect anything different. I expect India to absolutely dominate. I'll probably say a 4-1 win for India. Sri Lanka will probably just win one game somehow, but I expect a pretty simple series win for India. In terms of the squad changes for the two teams, India have announced their squad, and a lot of changes from their tour against the West Indies. You've got Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, and Manish Pandey. They're coming back in the team. That's the batting part of it. Sharma, obviously, after being rested. KL Rahul, obviously, after being injured. And Manish Pandey, on the back of being the top scorer in the A-Team Tri-Series in South Africa, he's been rewarded for his performance with India. And he's a guy who has scored hundreds at the ODI level. So certainly one to really persist with for India. In terms of the outs in the batting, Yuvraj Singh, he's out. Obviously, he didn't have a great Champions Trophy after that 50 he got in the first game against Pakistan. So really, I think it's time that India move on from Yuvraj. I agree with that. Dinesh Karthik, again, he's 32 years old. India moving on. Rishabh Pant, he's been left out. Didn't have a great A-Team tour. He only got 150 in 4 innings, but obviously a guy for the future. He only averages 23 in List A cricket, so certainly he has to improve his consistency. Even in the IPL, it was either a fail or a big score. He needs to become more consistent, but obviously an extremely talented player. No doubt he'll play for India in the future. Then, in terms of the spin bowling options, Ashwin and Jadeja have been rested. Akshay Patel and Yuzvendra Chahal, they have come in, and obviously Kuldeep Yadav is there. Ashwin and Jadeja being rested obviously is a smart thing, I think. And when you look at where India went wrong in the Champions Trophy, Ashwin and Jadeja could not take wickets and they could not stem the runs. So definitely I think India is smart to look elsewhere for more impact in their spin bowling. And then in the fast bowling, Shami and Yadav, they've been rested after the tests, which I think is pretty smart management. And then you've got Jasprit Bumrah, he's come back after being rested in the West Indies ODIs, and Shardul Thakur, he's also been rewarded for good form in that A-Team Tri-Series, the right arm seamer. I really like the selection policy for India compared to Sri Lanka's muddled policy. India are very clear in what they're doing. They're really looking to the 2019 World Cup and they're following the trends of one day cricket. Picking wrist spinners, Kuldeep, Chahal. We've seen how good wrist spinners have been in recent times in ODIs. Imran Tahir, Adil Rashid, Rashid Khan, Adam Zampa. We've seen how good these guys have been in ODIs in the recent past. Also looking more to youth and away with the old Yuvraj Singh being such a great servant over the years, but at 35, looking at that 2019 World Cup and his indifferent form, bringing in younger guys like Manish Pandey and KL Rahul. Great to see. And also good management of their bowlers, their test bowlers, all giving them a rest is great management and it's going to help them stay injury free. Obviously, one of the luxuries when you're a winning team, playing against a weaker team, you can do these type of things. But certainly, India, I think this is a great squad. Interestingly, from this is MS Dhoni is not necessarily a first choice pick anymore. He's not a certain pick. Usually he's one of the first names on the team sheet, but he hasn't been particularly great recently. Obviously, he's also getting old, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can perform because with the World Cup 2 years away, definitely there's a legitimate question mark over whether Dhoni is going to be there. So that's going to be one to watch definitely for India. You've obviously got a young guy like Rishabh Pant who can keep. You've got KL Rahul in the squad who, to be fair, is a bit of a part-time keeper, but he can keep. And you've got Dinesh Karthik, who's also in and around the Indian setup, who can keep. So there are certainly options if Dhoni was to be taken out. So it's going to be interesting to watch that space. But certainly India still look very good, and they should be way too good for Sri Lanka. In terms of the Sri Lankan squad, it hasn't been announced yet, but changes I expect from the Zimbabwe series, obviously Asela Gunaratne and Nuwan Pradeep, they are injured, so I can't see them featuring. In terms of the fast bowling, I don't know whether Suranga Lakmal is going to be fit, but if he's not, there's not really much to pick from because with all those injuries, and you look at Kumara and Shamira, who were both in the Zimbabwe squad, I've said before, they are not bowlers who have good control. They're capable of going for a lot of runs, and Asita Fernando, the 19-year-old, was clearly out of his depth when he made his debut. So it's going to be very interesting to see who they go with. There's not a lot of options in the fast bowling department. In the spin option, I'd like to see maybe Jeffrey Vandersay given a go. I like Sander Khan, Wanindu Hasaranga, Akila Dhananjaya attacking spinners. Give them a go. Keep playing them. Sri Lanka need to play attacking spinners because their fast bowling stocks in limited overs cricket are so bare, they're going to have to take wickets with their spinners if they're going to be successful. In terms of the batting, well, I don't know whether Kusal Perera is going to be fit or not. Obviously, he's had that hamstring injury that he picked up at the Champions Trophy, but if he is, then I think he should return because he's certainly an asset for Sri Lanka, and particularly with Gunaratne out, he would definitely be in the first 11, and that's really it. I think Tissera Pereira, he'll probably return. He left his time at Gloucestershire, where he was playing the NatWest T20 Blast, so I assume that is because he has been called up to the ODI team, which I don't think a lot of Sri Lanka fans will be particularly impressed about. Tissera Pereira, obviously a guy who just has not performed despite countless opportunities. And really another guy also who's in a very similar boat is Chamra Kapagedera, a guy who's never really performed, yet he's given countless opportunities. Nuwan Kulasekara, he's nearly 35, well over the hill. Lasith Malinga, nearly 34, well over the hill. Sri Lanka have a lot of issues in their team. Absolutely. So certainly it's going to be a rough series for Sri Lanka again. But the main thing is to at least put up a fight. I'm not expecting them to go out and beat India in a series, but maybe win one game and some players put your mark on the team. Put your mark on the team. Show you belong at the elite level. That's all I can say for Sri Lanka. And I look forward to the game, which, as I said before, is going to be on Sunday. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is a little bit of news. The Sri Lankan board is saying that Sri Lanka, there's a good chance they may play one of the T20s. That is obviously going to be in their tour of the UAE against Pakistan. One of the T20s they're planning to play in Pakistan. from that tour. Now, to me, when I heard this, I was shocked. And all I can say is this is just a political move. That's all it is. It's really Tilanga Sumatipala trying to get brownie points with the Pakistan cricket board. That's really all it is to me. It's just doing favors. I think it's highly insensitive. Of the players that are likely to be picked in that squad, Chandra Kapagadera was on that bus in Karachi in 2009 when the Sri Lankan team was nearly wiped out. They were lucky to survive. That was 8 years ago. It is amazing to me that Sri Lanka could be the first big international team. Obviously, Zimbabwe played there, but the first big international team to go there when they were the ones who were nearly killed back in 2009. And that's the thing that caused basically the blackout for Pakistan in terms of cricket being played there, international cricket being played there. It amazes me how insensitive it is. And I hope that the players say no to this. I find it very alarming. And I fully respect any player that says no, I don't want to go to Pakistan. Ultimately, I would love international cricket to return to Pakistan. Absolutely, no doubt about that. But these guys, a lot of them, they've played with guys who were on that bus. They must have heard how it was. Do they really want to go there again when those wounds are still so fresh? It's not like this was 30 years ago. This was less than a decade ago. It is quite amazing to me, the audacity of Sumati Parla, that all sensitivities are thrown out the window for a little political favour. That sort of sums up Sri Lankan cricket. Really, there is no soul searching, no introspection. It's all about looking for scapegoats, looking for excuses, and in amongst that, trying to benefit your own interests. It's all about these self interests. They're really not looking after the best interests of the country. It's just about making themselves as rich as possible. And that's the most damning thing I can say about the board. So, yes, that's it for me. Today was a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this podcast, you can check it out. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. All those links can be found on the Twitter page. But until next time, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.